Are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? I sure am. The Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. Use it like any credit card. Buy lunch, gas, or your weekly groceries, and you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee, and right now you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It's the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Go to Gemini.com/card to learn more. Terms apply. See the link in the description for more information regarding rates and fees.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What's up, folks, and welcome in to a Friday edition of Money Moves. It's Jonathan Von Tobel flying solo. Stormy Buonantony out in Boston as she will be on the sidelines for Notre Dame Boston College. Off for the day, but that doesn't mean we don't have a great show in store for you. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
All right, we'll start with a great day, and we start with a lot of great guests as well coming up today. Mike Palm's going to be with us coming up in 15 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on what is going on this weekend. Also want to pick his brain on what we're going to see in the big picture after the fallout of the gambling scandal in the NBA involving the mob and more. Will Hill, Jason Jarvis, second place in the Circa Friday Football Invitational, as well as Zach Cohen, who's going to join us. It's a big Friday card, first of the NBA Cup. So very much looking forward to what Zach has to offer today. Speaking of, it is an NBA Friday, so we'll get to the NBA Cup odds and just the games tonight. It's been really fun, the early portion of the NBA season, and we're starting to get some scuttlebutt, some noise around one guy for an award, even though he's up maybe for two. We'll tell you who that is and whether or not it's legitimate. But we begin today, certainly last but not least, good day for a championship, eh? Looking forward to today, and that's where we begin in with the World Series, of course, getting resumed tonight. Toronto Blue Jays and the Los Angeles Dodgers getting resumed. Dodgers on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays. We see an opener of $1.38 in front of LA. Plus 124 coming back on the other side. 7.5 shaded to the under at minus 120, your opening total. So far, seeing a little bit of movement in favor of the Los Angeles Dodgers at a couple of spots, but others have moved toward Toronto. And you think maybe rightfully so, given what we have seen in the early going of this series. It has been I don't know if shocking is the right word, but I would say surprising. I'm somebody who laid 1.5 games with the Dodgers, and obviously they're not going to get there. But this Toronto offense has been absolutely great, but it's really going to be about the pitching matchup. The last time we saw Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Kevin Gausman, it was an incredible performance from both starting pitchers, but specifically Yamamoto. And let's start there. John Schneider yesterday talked to media about what it means facing Yamamoto and what the Blue Jays have to do.
Man, hopefully he's a little tired, throwing that many innings. He's unique because he's got what seems like 6 or 7 pitches and can kind of morph into different pitchers as the game kind of goes on, You got to be stubborn. You have to be ready to hit, and you have to be stubborn with what kind of swings you're taking. That's what it comes down to. He's not a guy you can kind of wait out. He's going to pound the zone. Sometimes you got to force some action on him. You know what I mean? If he's going really well. So I think having seen him will help us. We hadn't seen him in the regular season, so get some feedback from the guys and formulate a plan with Pop and Lou and Hunter and get after it.
Really, it's going to be about whether or not the Blue Jays can limit the strikeouts against Yamamoto. There's a lot of great data out there about what the Blue Jays the Blue Jays are walking into here against Yoshinobu. So let's go with a couple of things here. Yamamoto is courtesy of Major League Baseball. Yamamoto in games with 6 or more strikeouts, if you include the playoffs. He's played in 37 games in those situations, 227 in the third innings. He's pitched 6.14 innings per start, an ERA under 2, a whip under 1. He has struck out over 32% of the batters he's faced in those starts, and a walk rate of under 6% or under 7%. So the whole point here being that if you're allowing Yamamoto to use that off-speed stuff to induce swings and misses, to strike out and to generate those strikeouts, he's going to be able to go deep into some of these games. He is, of course, going to set the Dodgers up for success, and it's really when his breaking pitches are on. Let's look at the games in which he has struck out 5 or fewer. It makes a really big difference, and this includes the playoffs, and one we'll talk about specifically against the Phillies coming up in a couple of minutes. But 19 games this season in which Yamamoto has struck out 5 or fewer, 83 and 2/3 innings. That's about 4.4 innings per start. 4.52 ERA. You look at the difference there. A 1.94 ERA in the games in which he has struck out 6 or more. A 4.40 ERA or 4.50 ERA in games in which he has had 5 or fewer strikeouts. A whip nearly at 1.4. A strikeout rate under 20% and a walk rate at nearly 10. It makes a massive difference when you have to force Yamamoto to work, when you drive up the pitch count, when he's not able to induce swings and misses, when you're able to put the ball in play against him. And that's essentially what this Blue Jays team has done to almost every single one of the opponents that they have faced. And look even more so, some of the more granular numbers that you have on Yamamoto in terms of his curve and splitter. Look at his worst game that we saw of the postseason. We talked about that start against the Phillies. Just a 7% chase rate, 1 swing out of 14 out of the zone curve/splitters according to MLB tracking data. A 0% whiff rate, meaning 0 misses, 8 swings versus curves and splitters. So they were making contact against it. But if you look across all of his other 2025 starts, if you're talking about what we've seen in the postseason, that includes Game 2, chase rate over 41%, whiff rate over 36%. He has been really good, and that has led to the success, and that's what this is all about for this team. Now, it's not just about Toronto, though, obviously, but when a guy comes off of 2 complete games, and we'll see if whether or not he can get a third. By the way, if he can, this is going to be just the 3rd time that you've seen 3 straight complete games in a single postseason in the past 55 years. Kurt Schilling, Oral Hershiser, and Luis Tiant are the 3 who achieved it, last achieving it in 2001. But this is also going to be about whether or not the Dodgers can bring anything to the table offensively. Let's hear from Dave Roberts, who talked about the Dodgers' approach at the plate, gave a pretty good answer about what they're looking at, especially when it comes to looking for fastballs versus stuff off speed and away from the plate.
You know what? I think, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. I'm sure our guys too. I think it's more of, all that being said, intent, mechanics. I think right now, when we got to find a way to win one game. And I could dive into my thoughts, but I think at the end of the day, they've just got to compete and fight in the batter's box. And it's one-on-one, the hitter versus the pitcher, and that's it. I think that, that sort of mindset is all I'll be looking for, and, and expect good things to happen from that.
In the losses in this series, the Dodgers are hitting 172. They've scored a grand total of these 7 runs. They've walked 11 times. They've struck out 35 times. This all matters because, one, of course, they have struggled, especially back into their lineup. We've talked about this ad nauseum during this show. But it's also because Kevin Gausman was dominant the last time we saw him. 6 2/3. 4 hits, yes, gave up 3 earned runs, but struck out the last 17, or not struck out, sat down the last 17 hitters that he had faced, really had calmed down and been great. And if you look at the totality of the 2 performances from Gausman on, Gausman and Yamamoto, it was a good pitching matchup. So we'll see if the Dodgers, who Dave Roberts has been speaking to this fact, whether or not their lineup has been efficient enough to get this thing done. It's been a question of his for a while. We've played clips from him. We've heard from him about this. And this is going to be the big storyline for L.A. as they head into this game. And yet still, the market at times, we've talked about it, can be a stubborn thing. We saw the market price these games at well over $2 in the games in L.A. You see this here where it's about $1.44. No real rush, it would seem, to come in and jump on the Toronto Blue Jays. And Yamamoto is a really big part of that. But at some point, you got to wonder if doubting this Blue Jays team from a market standpoint is wise, considering what they've been able to do. And they also might be getting healthier. Of course, they've done this about the last 2 games with George Springer out of the lineup. Let's hear from John Schneider one more time, because it sounds like Springer might be on his way back today.
He was right on the fence. I think he probably could have, you know what I mean? And I was really juggling what's best for him, what's best for the team, not just immediately to start the game, but kind of how that game may unfold too. He was close, you know what I mean? He was close and he was ready to come in. And I'm glad we didn't need him and got him an extra couple days, but hopefully he's good to go tomorrow.
Yeah, what's your kind of expectation for Game 6? What kind of boxes does he still have to check?
Not many, to be honest with you. I think just making sure he feels comfortable and confident tomorrow, you know what I mean? And not just for, one at bat, to go in and to compete and kind of get locked into a game. So he's kind of checked every box physically so far. So see how tomorrow goes.
Yep, and it's expected that George Springer is going to be in the lineup here today for Game 6 for the Toronto Blue Jays, which, again, you're looking at that $1.44 price tag. As far as the game is concerned, I mean, as somebody who thought the Dodgers were going to be able to get this thing done, not going to be the case for me to jump in. It's hard as well to really expect Yamamoto to continue to do the things that he's done. And as Schneider has pointed out when we talked about and played the clip earlier about what they're expecting from Yamamoto, a second time around to face a guy is going to help you out. But the same goes for the Los Angeles Dodgers as well. Total 7.5 here, again, shaded to the over ever so slightly at -114. But we'll have more on this. We're going to get Mike Palm's thoughts on it coming up in 15 minutes. Do want to hit a little bit of breaking news in the NFL. We can have more as it goes along, but it sounds like a shakeup is in order for the Miami Dolphins as Chris Greer is out as the Dolphins general manager, and we do get a report Mike McDaniel is going to finish out the season as head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Now, this matters for a little bit. I mean, first off, there was a very popular wager, and preseason-wise and heading into the first early weeks, Mike McDaniel is one of the top guys in terms of first coach to be fired. So if it's true that he's going to finish out the season, then that might be a blow for anybody who's got a ticket on him. The other is that as we approach the trade deadline, there are multiple reports out there that the Dolphins were being called about some of the players that they had on their roster, and if there was any interest, every single team by multiple reports was rebuffed and said, nope, we're not going to sell, we're not doing anything. Well, now, with Champ Kelly as the interim general manager for the rest of the season, one would assume that it is not the same mindset for the Miami Dolphins and that maybe we could see a little bit of a sale out there in South Beach with this team now 2-7, fresh off the loss last night to the Baltimore Ravens. Everything's right in the world. Dolphins now falling back down to earth. What does it say about the Atlanta Falcons, by the way, in that loss? Two really bad losses for Atlanta on their ledger. Not only this one, but the weird shutout 30-0 to the Carolina Panthers. But big news there is it looks like McDaniel will finish out as head coach of the Miami Dolphins. With that, we'll have our market power ratings coming up in about 30 minutes from now. We do have some interesting notes there, including the stubbornness, speaking of market stubbornness, with one team that continues to let the market down, and yet it refuses to budge on its rating of that team. But when we come back, Mike Palm joins us here at the desk on Money Moves.
Did you know your credit card points and miles can lose value to inflation? Credit card companies often reduce the redemption value of your points and miles. Now imagine a credit card with rewards that can grow in value. With the Gemini credit card, you can earn Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos instantly with no annual fee. Every swipe at the store or gas pump earns you instant rewards deposited straight to your account. Plus, sign up now for a $200 Bitcoin bonus to kickstart your rewards. Visit Gemini.com/card today. Check out the link in the description for more information on rates and fees. Again, if you're looking to invest in Bitcoin but don't know where to start, the Gemini credit card makes it easy.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It is a Friday, and you know what? It's kind of a busy and stressful Friday on my end, and I totally forgot to wish everybody a happy Halloween. Didn't even realize it was the spooky season already. Time goes by. Nice enough to join us here on this very frightful day, one Mike Palm, who is looking very dapper, and one of my favorite colors. I'm a big blue guy. Baby blue looks good, too. But hello, sir. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, Jonathan. The kids are very excited to go trick-or-treating tonight. My son, who's 9, he's a dinosaur again.
Okay,
I think it's the same outfit, just a bigger size from when he was 2, I think. And then my stepdaughter and daughter always kind of go as a combo. They're Glinda and Elphaba from Wicked, the two, the good and the bad witch or whatever. So, yeah, they've been – but, of course, we did trunk or treating. I mean, it's like a whole 10 days of different things that they do.
Well, I don't know if your kids do this. Like, so my kid wanted to wear a costume. Or he wanted to be something called Huggy Wuggy. I don't know what this is, but it's what he wanted to be. It's just something freaky for kids. But long story short, to the point of trunk or treats, we've been to like 3. And he tells me this morning, he's like, well, I've already worn that. And I'm like, no. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, we're not going to buy a costume now. You're wearing this tonight.
Well, the 3-year-olds had 3 different outfits, but she is repeating her main Glinda outfit. But, like, she was a cowgirl for one thing, and then she was Bluey the other day. And so I guess you got to get them 3 outfits now.
It's a nightmare. So
as long as it's anything but stormy yesterday.
You didn't like that?
Oh, I thought it fell flat. It was really flat.
I thought it was brilliant.
No, I didn't. I didn't know who she was. I saw her in the showroom. I said, who are you? Carmen Sandiego? I mean, well, I didn't know what it was. Waldo? I
thought she looked like Rachel Maddow.
And then
I sent her a picture afterward because I was like, man, you look like somebody, but I can't put my finger on it. And afterward, I sent her a picture. I was like, it's perfect.
And then the impression, I don't know. I couldn't deal with it. 2 minutes in, I had to tune out.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, and then I consumed it in small bits on the replay.
Okay, so the lesson is too much of me, I think is.
It's not too much. She didn't nail it. Let's put it that way. But okay. A for effort.
The effort was there. It was very good.
A for effort.
And she surprised me. I didn't know she was doing it until I walked in.
But she had the same color. Did she ask you what color your shirt was going to be?
She coordinated with my wife.
Oh, because otherwise that was uncanny that she got the shirt right.
Yep. No, it was a coordination on her end. All right, so there's a lot to get to with you in a little amount of time. Let's start with tonight first. World Series, Toronto and L.A. So I was just singing the praises and kind of talking through a game plan for the Dodgers. Yamamoto going for a 3rd straight 9-inning performance. I don't think he's going to do that. I'm going to go out on a limb, but he's been unreal. But this Blue Jays lineup has been unreal.
18.5 is his outs.
Yeah.
Boy, I think he's going to be great or terrible tonight. All season long, I said he's the best in-game pitcher to bet because in the first inning, if his breaking stuff doesn't have the snap, right? Yep. He needs command of all 6 pitches. And he's a little like Darvish when that slider's spinning for Darvish and he's going to get hit. It hasn't happened, right? And they got him for this moment. They went out and paid $350 million. They had to pay. He got a $50 million bonus. They had to pay the Japanese team $50 million, then give him this long contract, $27 million a year, right?
Yep.
For this night. Where on the other hand, Trey Savage to make $57,000. It's the most amazing story ever, right? But let's not forget about Gaussman, who pitched pretty darn well in Game 2.
I think he retired the last 17 hitters he faced.
And everybody's sleeping on him talking about Yamamoto. I lean Dodgers tonight, but where are they going to get runs from? I think a point that hasn't been made enough is Will Smith caught 36 innings in 3 days. Right?
Yep.
In 52 hours in LA cut. And what legs does he have left? I know they moved him up to the 2-hole. Betts is an automatic out.
Yeah, he's not swinging the ball.
Muncy is not seeing the ball well, right? Mm-hmm. So it's you come down to Ohtani and Freeman have to generate all the offense, and Kiki Hernandez here and there. So that's a problem for the Dodgers. I lean Dodgers tonight. I didn't bet the game. The price is wild. I mean, you can find it 120, 145. But I don't like the Dodgers in Game 7. I'm not a glass now guy, so I do believe the Blue Jays are winning this thing. Now, if you have Blue Jays tickets plus 240, I would take $2 now on the Dodgers.
Right.
That's what I did on that Blues ticket 5 years ago when I had 60-1. When they got up 3-2 on Boston in the final, I come back with Boston plus 240, right,
sure.
and lock it in, which I think Dave Ross had some form of what he did with his Toronto ticket. But it's been a terrific World Series. Game 3, I don't know if there was a better game in our lifetimes than a World Series, right?
That was incredible because, the defensive plays they were making to keep that game going.
Baseball is good because of action on the base paths, right?
Yes,
and it had it all.
Yep.
So many defensive plays and action in every inning. And to think that awful Dodger bullpen went 11 innings without giving up a run to win that game.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, if they lose this series, it'll be lost to history a little bit. But Will Klein's performance in that game.
72 pitches, he's never thrown one, and he's on fumes, and Yamamoto's ready to come in and give him another 9 out of the pen.
But I thought that was great. Like, to your point, he's on fumes, but he's still lacing like 97 miles an hour and trying to get it done.
That was fun.
No,
Klein was really fun.
I was out at that night, and it was one of those where it's like, man, it's midnight, but I'm here. Like, we can't leave. I can't leave this.
My wife and kids fell asleep. They couldn't take it. And then in the morning, she goes, did you stay up for that? When did it end?
Hell yeah.
Before midnight. It ended.
Really quick, to Mike's point, because it's a great point about Yamamoto. You've made it all year long. If you go back to game 2 for Yamamoto, 41% chase rate, 38 swings, 92 out of the zone. Or excuse me, this is game 2. 48% chase rate, 14 swings on 29 out of the zone curves and splitters, and a 36% whiff rate, 11 misses on 31 swings versus curves and splitters. So he was great. Over 9 innings.
He sets up the curve and the splitters so well.
Yep.
First and third, nobody out, right? That's how they start off. And Vladdy up, and it's 2-0.
Yep.
Doesn't phase Yamamoto. He's going to go down and in, 92, 93, and then he comes 97 up in the strike zone, and you've got Vladdy's bat sped up to, and then he comes with a 78-mile-an-hour curveball to get you out, right? So we'll see if his breaking pitches are working. I was watching Korean baseball earlier this morning.
Yep.
Talk about guys with 6 pitches. Hung-Chin Ryu is back in Korea pitching.
Really?
He's like 400 pounds, and his ERA is north of 14.
Way.
But that guy came very close to winning the Cy Young in 2019. If he didn't have 2 awful starts at Coors where he gave up 7 earned runs each time, I think he beats DeGrom for the Cy Young that year.
I got to look this up now. 400 pounds, really.
Hanwha Eagles.
Yeah, he does look pretty good. All right, really quick. So because I did want to ask you, if we have time, some gambling questions about what we witnessed over the last couple of weeks. Anything in hockey, though? We had the Frozen Frenzy the other day.
Ducks tonight, minus 110. Detroit on the back-to-back. I'm high on this team. I'm futures on Ducks playoffs to make playoffs at 3-1, and they've played pretty well so far under Quenneville. So that's my sole play today. I didn't touch the Nevada Day game, which is at 1, usually at 3 o'clock on this Nevada Day, but the Avalanche of the Knights 1 o'clock this afternoon, coming up soon.
Yeah, Knights an underdog right now over here at Circa minus 115 on Colorado, plus 103 coming back on the hometown Knights. All right, so big picture, I wanted to add, obviously you're a role officially again with the AGA?
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors, and we've had a lot of conversations in the last week.
I was more curious because I actually kind of wanted to look forward. I tried to do this with Stormy, but I'm not a smart guy. And we get this report a couple of days after everything goes down with the indictment that Congress is now asking the NBA for some details. How much do you think this speeds up a push for federal regulation across the board?
I don't think so, because I think states' rights is a big thing in this country, right? And nobody wants some omnibus bill that bureaucrats in Washington are going to try. Yes, is it a little complicated? Each state's different with their rules, but I don't think so. And I don't think the NBA whiffed this investigation of Rozier. I think they were told to stand down.
Sure.
That's my gut feeling on this. It's also very disappointing in this whole sphere of the last 7 to 10 days, how now the NHL comes out with this allowing Kalshi to use their logos and all of this. I mean, it's stunning. Lou Jacobs, who sits on the board of directors with me, that Jacobs family, Delaware North, owns the Bruins. They had no idea the NHL was getting into this deal. So what Derek and I are doing right now is calling our Major League Baseball teams that we sponsor, because it's too late now in the NHL, and trying to get ahead of this thing. I mean, if you're going to promote this unregulated way to bet sports, the value of our partnership has certainly decreased. So it's interesting. As far as props go and the future goes, look at why you can't have props on 8 guys in a basketball game and expect there isn't going to be some kind of chicanery, right?
Sure.
The stuff with college kids to me is more concerning, because you catch the stuff that happens in the NBA because of the betting patterns. But if college kids are getting harassed because they didn't, go over their rushing yards and all that stuff, there's no place for that. And conference commissioners have been pushing to get rid of props in college for several years.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong in thinking that if we're going to do this with these props, do we not have to look at daily fantasy? I mean, what's the difference when you're talking about spending money on daily fantasy as well?
Well, nothing. That's where it all comes from.
Yeah.
That's why people now want to bet on players more than they want to bet on sides and totals, because the new generation of sports bettors comes out of DFS.
Yep. And that's what I found was pretty interesting is, if we're going to make this push, because I would agree, especially, I don't know what barometer you would set for NBA players, right? Player X, if it's amount of money, years in the league, whatever it is, that you would not put an over-under on them. But you're still going to have this aspect of going after players for their individual performances.
Yeah. We do only 3 players. That's just because of our tech. It's not because of anything else. Yeah. But we say, we've recognized this for a long time.
Mike, we appreciate it. Thank you for a couple minutes, sir.
Thanks, John.
Bet on Chicago again. Make sure you check that out as well. Yeah. Breeders' Cup weekend is here, folks. You don't want to go in guessing. Got a full expert pick sheet for you for just $9.99. Every race, both days, straight from the top 3 handicappers, including Mike Somich, who hit the Derby superfecta this year. For VSiN Pro subscriber, you get picks for free. We're laying out top selections, confidence scores. Perfect for anybody trying to add a data point into their handicapping. Check it out, VSiN.com/breeders. That is VSIN.com/breeders. Take our break. Come back. Will Hill will join us as we get his thoughts on the upcoming weekend of football and the World Series.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Big thanks to Mike Palm. If you missed out on any part of our conversation, you can check out the Money Moves podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find there one of the many pods in the VSiN family, Pod to the Futures, with myself and Mitch Moss, as well as the Shoulda Bet More podcast, host of which is Will Hill, who joins us now via the Progressive Guest Line. Will, it is good to talk to you, buddy. So how are we feeling? It is, 11:30. That would be 2:30 over there on the East Coast. You're getting ready to batten down the hatches and get ready for a fun night of Halloween. You've got, 4 of them that you got to take around? What's the night entail for Will Hill and the family?
Yeah, what's going on? It should be good. By the way, great segue. Outstanding professional work, as always, one of your many strengths as a host. Yeah, the kids are excited. Usually an hour or so, a bunch of candy, eat maybe 3 or 4 pieces of it, and it sits in the cabinet until the next year. But, yeah, this is their Super Bowl. They are pumped.
Yeah, it used to be a big one for me, but, time, it goes by. And I don't know if you indulge in this, but the cool thing is when you go around trick-or-treating and it's the few adult houses that hand out some sort of alcohol, that's the spot to be.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I've always said it's a little bit of an overrated holiday because you don't get it off and you don't get the next day off unless it falls on a weekend, which it does now. So when you're ranking holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, you get these off. New Year's, you're off from school, you get a couple days off. Halloween, you're in school the next day if it falls on the wrong day. So that's why you have to knock it down a little peg. The one exception, when you're in college, Halloween is awesome for obvious reasons.
Yep, and I will say really quick before we move on, it might not be a day off for you, but, sir, it is Nevada Day out here. There is no school on Halloween every single year. So that is actually something that works for the youngsters out in Las Vegas. But we will move on, and let's talk about something else that's a little scary, and that's the Atlanta Falcons, what we saw from them last week against the Miami Dolphins. And that is accentuated by what we saw last night from the Miami Dolphins. There is no way you are coming in back in the Falcons after last week.
I was watching that last night thinking, how the hell could you watch this Dolphins team and think, as a Falcons fan, a Falcons player, whatever, we were down 34-3 at home to this team. Like, how is that possible? That being said, it's the NFL, and just buy low, sell high. If you played this game a few weeks ago or a month ago, the line is 1 or 2 maybe. We know the Patriots wins. They're not great outside of Buffalo. They beat the Titans and the Browns and the Dolphins and the Saints and the Panthers. So it's a desperate Falcons team. You're getting them low. You're getting some points. You figure they bounce back here and play well, and maybe a field goal game. So I'll plug my nose here and take the Falcons plus the 5.5 points.
Yep, New England, as you mentioned, 5.5, 44.5, or 45, depending on where you look. All right, let's move on to, some would say, the best team in the National Football League. The Indianapolis Colts are on the road, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I am not one that falls into this line of thinking before I about to now fall into this line of thinking. I've heard a lot of people have my team's name on their lips, Will Hill. They seem like a very popular side this weekend.
Jim Bob Cooter, the offensive coordinator for the Colts, not getting enough love. He should be the offensive coordinator of the year, the assistant of the year. Completely unbiased take for me. No, he's done a tremendous job, and I like the Colts. I think a lot of people will look at the Steelers and say, hey, this is a bounce-back spot for the Steelers and Tomlin. They've lost a couple games in a row. They're at home. They're getting points. This is where his teams usually do best and respond. I don't know if there's a response this year. They're so bad on defense. And if you just look at explosive plays, Colts, number 1 in the league. getting them. Steelers, third worst in the league, allowing them. That's according to True Media. So I just think this Colts offense, they're going to get their 30-plus, it seems like, against pretty much everyone. Can the Steelers keep up? I don't think so. I think this is a Steelers team. I bought plus 250 to win the division a few weeks ago. I have since jumped off that. I do not like what I see from the Steelers team.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. So let's zoom out a little bit with Indianapolis. I mean, at this point right now, so we do our market power ratings. The Chiefs are the highest power-rated team in the National Football League. I don't think that surprises anybody, and the rating is climbing week to week. What is, in your mind, the distance between Indianapolis and Kansas City?
It's so tough because if you're just going to look at the stats and on paper, it's not that much.
Yep.
You just have to build in the reputation of Mahomes has done this now for 7 or 8 years and been in or around the Super Bowl for all that time, and Daniel Jones was off the scrap heap. So that bias is hard to ignore. But on paper, I don't know, it's not much, a point or so. But, again, that reputation carries a lot of weight. I don't know if you feel differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we're going to find out some idea of how these two teams stack up. They'll play each other in a couple of weeks. But I'm with you, and I think one of the things that I keep harping on, and maybe this is me being a pessimist about my favorite football team, that defense is still, I think, a concern. And I think against some better opponents, I think they can go toe-to-toe with every offense in the NFL, but they will find themselves in some shootouts that they need to keep pace with. And that's going to be, I think, the question to answer, especially when you look at the next couple of weeks for this team. You have the Steelers, you have the Falcons in Germany, and then after a bye, you have Kansas City. So we'll learn more if whether or not that offense is going to be able to keep up with what I think is a defensive weakness. But we'll answer that question as we get the results. Will Hill with us. Follow him on Twitter at @NotTheWillHill. Again, Shoulda Bet More podcast is where you can find a lot of the work there, too. All right, one more in the National Football League. She's not here, but I'm sure her ears are now burning as Stormy Buonantony's San Francisco 49ers are on the road to take on the New York Giants. What are we looking at here between these two? Jeff Garcia ain't walking through that door.
He is not. Jim Druckenmiller is not walking through that door. I still like the 49ers here. I think this is still just the more talented team. I like the matchup, too, of Jackson Dart, a rookie quarterback, against a really good, really well-respected defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh. And no Scatabo, no Neighbors. This Giants team is improved. There's reasons for hope. But at the end of the day, if you're going anywhere, if you're the 49ers, if you're going to make the playoffs, you have to beat this skeleton crew of the Giants. Showing some flaws here, run defensively. I just think the 49ers are a better team. Not a great home field advantage for the Giants. They're beat up. Both teams are, but I'll lay it here with San Francisco.
All right, and quarterback situation doesn't really matter to you one way or the other. It doesn't seem like it's Purdy, but if we get some late news, I think you're fine with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd prefer a healthy Purdy. I don't buy this idea that they're just equal players. I think when Purdy is healthy, he's a little bit better, but Jones has obviously played pretty well here.
Yep. All right, let's move to college football as we're looking at the weekend that will be with Will Hill. Let's start with Colorado. What do we do with the Buffs? The last couple of weeks have been all over the place, but right now they find themselves as 3.5 to 4.5 point favorites, depending on where you shop. Underdogs at home with a total of 53.5 against Arizona.
Yeah, this is not a pretty one. I will admit, if you watched them last week, you probably don't have an appetite to bet them this week. But Colorado has been a lot better at home. They beat Iowa State. They really should have beaten BYU. They let that game get away, and they played Georgia Tech down to the wire. So their home-road results are pretty disparate. You're getting a bounce-back spot. I mean, there's no more of a bounce-back than where they were last week. Oh, my goodness, that looked basically like an NFL team versus a high school team. It was ridiculous, some of those stats versus Utah. Getting points at home, embarrassed last week. It's ugly, but I will take Deion, who has been pretty good in his short tenure there at Colorado as a dog.
All right, what about in the SEC, Oklahoma and Tennessee? You're starting to see it's like juiced 2.5 start to appear here. Totals 55.5. But what do you do with the Vols at home as short favorites against the Sooners?
Yeah, I feel like I'm one of the only ones on Tennessee. I like Tennessee here, and it's similar to what we talked about with Colts Steelers. I just don't know if Oklahoma can keep up offensively. I think Tennessee, with that offense, which is a machine of an offense, at home is going to get their 30-plus points against pretty much anyone, even though Oklahoma is obviously really good defensively. Can Oklahoma match that? Can Oklahoma get in that neighborhood? I'm not sure. Mateer has not played great since he came back from the injury. And, you look at the loss a couple weeks ago for Tennessee. That was a misleading final against Bama where they threw the 100-yard pick six, and then the ball ended at like the 1-inch line. So I'm going to go with the home team and this Tennessee offense. I just think that's the key to the game here.
Yep, I would agree. And by the way, you're talking to at least somebody who likes Tennessee. I'll use them in the college super contest out here, and do like the Vols in this spot against Oklahoma. So there's at least one person that shares your thoughts. But having said that,
there we go.
I bring up something positive because we will be head-to-head here. Vandy catching 2.5 against Texas. What do you got?
I don't blame you. Maybe I'm staying on the bandwagon too long here. I've been on Vandy pretty much most of the year here. Not that I was like one of the first ones or anything, but
sure.
The last 4 or 5 games, took them against Bama, took them the last few weeks. I'm just going to stick with it. I just don't like this Texas offense. I think they've been incredibly fortunate the past couple of weeks. Kentucky and Mississippi State, both games they probably could have, should have lost. I'm just going to keep going with Vandy. I do think they're the better team, as crazy as that sounds. You're talking Vanderbilt at Texas, and you're going to basically just take Vanderbilt to win the game. It doesn't feel right. I can certainly understand why you're taking Texas, but I'm going to stay on the Diago Pavia train here and say they get the win.
All right. Will, before we get you out of here, last 30 seconds, do we get a Game 7 in the World Series?
I don't think so. I do like Blue Jays getting a half a run in the first 5 innings. You could tell me any of the 3 things happened. Either team wins in 7 or Blue Jays win tonight. I have no feel for the series, but I'll say Toronto wins.
All right, well, we appreciate it. Should have bet more podcast. Thanks a lot, man.
See you, man. Thanks.
Yeah, not the Will Hill up on Twitter. 2 E's in the, by the way. All right. You know what? It's that time. It's about 11:40 here on the West Coast. Feeling a little hungry. And every time I think about these burgers that we put up here, absolutely tremendous. Looks great. Football meets flavor with VSiN and Omaha Steaks, the official sponsor of tailgating. Built for the grill, Omaha Steaks smash burgers, pre-smashed, crafted from premium-aged beef, and go from freezer to bun in just 5 minutes with juicy, unforgettable flavor. And as a VSiN exclusive, you'll get 16 free smash burgers with any order of $129 or more, plus 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com/VSiN, omahasteaks.com/VSIN. Minimum purchase apply. See site for details. When we come back, our market power ratings as we look to what the betting market thinks of all of these teams in the National Football League.
Did you know your credit card points and miles can lose value to inflation? Credit card companies often reduce the redemption value of your points and miles. Now imagine a credit card with rewards that can grow in value. With the Gemini credit card, you can earn Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos instantly with no annual fee. Every swipe at the store or gas pump earns you instant rewards deposited straight to your account. Plus, sign up now for a $200 Bitcoin bonus to kickstart your rewards. Visit Gemini.com/card today. Check out the link in the description for more information on rates and fees. Again, if you're looking to invest in Bitcoin but don't know where to start, the Gemini credit card makes it easy.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Saga continues out in the NBA. Not a big deal when it comes to our neck of the woods in the realm of sports betting, but sounds like the NBA Players Union is going to fight the league's decision to put Terry Rozier on leave without pay. Quote, their decision to place Terry on leave without pay, counter to the presumption of innocence and inconsistent with the terms of our CBA as this thing continues to evolve. Had a good talk really briefly with Mike Palm about that. We also just chatted with Will Hill. If you missed out on any part of that, you can check that out wherever you get your podcasts up at vsin.com or Spotify, Apple Pods. Check out other things, Pod to the Futures. Had a great episode this week with Mitchell R. Moss that you can find there. But with that, it's the same thing we do this time every single Friday. We take a look at what will be in the NFL. We'll also take a look at what the market thinks of these teams in the National Football League, as it is Week 9 and the addition of Week 9 in the NFL for our market power rating. So with that, let's unveil it pretty easy. I think the early storyline or the opening storyline here, it really is, over the last couple of weeks, the evolution of the Kansas City Chiefs and their placement in the league. We have now seen them ascend to the top of the market power ratings, and for very good reason. This team is really starting to, I shouldn't say peak because we're only in week 9, but starting to find its groove, starting to look more explosive and more lethal from an offensive standpoint. So you see them there at the very top of the power ratings. But if you notice, and if you've been with us week to week, what you'll notice here is a widening gap between the Kansas City Chiefs and the rest of the National Football League, and that stems from their matchup on the road against the Buffalo Bills. Right now, they're about 2-point favorites on the road against Buffalo. That would mean that you're about a 1.5-point favorite, or should be a 4-point favorite or 3.5-point favorite in a neutral setting against Buffalo. So we can clearly see that the market not only respects Kansas City, but believes there now to be this line of demarcation between them and their other opponents in the National Football League and the AFC alike. So this is going to be a big test. You know, if you're betting on Kansas City here this weekend, and we're using them as part of our Money Moves Circa Millions entry, this is a situation where you could argue you're buying at the top of the market with Kansas City, but what if they really are that much better than everybody else? This is going to be a week where we really do learn what that's going to look like in the grand scheme of the AFC. So it's a big test for Kansas City. They've passed their last 2 relatively well, and we will see if they can get it done here. But with them laying 2 on the road, again, if we're using 1.5, that would mean about a 3.5-point difference between these two and a neutral. And so that's where you get this about 3-point difference between the two for our market power ratings this week. So from there, where do we go? I think there's a couple of different spots we can go to here with these matchups. Let's stay near the top, though, because one of the things that I think is the theme is not only Kansas City and the way that they're starting to separate themselves from the pack, but it's how we're starting to have these tiers really kind of separate even more. If you look at the way that our market power ratings shift out, and again, for those who are just joining us, we do this every single week. It's the way the betting market power rates these teams. We get home field advantage, and then we derive power ratings from them, and this is what it would look like. You compare and contrast with your own power ratings, you get your numbers, and boom, you have an idea of where you stand compared to the betting market. But let's take a look at Carolina really quickly, because Carolina's been an interesting team to track throughout this week's. Carolina's on the road against Green Bay. 13 is the number. That would mean that there's about an 11.5-point difference between these two teams on a neutral. This is a far drop for Carolina down to that 72.5-point mark. I'd also argue, though, that if you're downgrading Carolina after last week, that had to do with Andy Dalton, who allegedly broke his thumb on the first pass of the game and then had to play the rest of the way. Maybe that explains some of the issues. But let's hear from Dave Canales, because there are quite a few injuries here for Carolina to deal with, one at quarterback, the other along the offensive line, among some other names. Here was Canales at media availability yesterday.
Bryce had a really good day. We're going to take it each day, try to push it a little bit more. Had a little bit of a modified mode at practice today, but he handled the load. Tomorrow we'll push it again, and we'll make a decision in the next couple of days. But he looked good. Taylor got a good report, and as good as news as we could have. We're going to work through him. He may be available Sunday. We'll have to evaluate him. We were not able to move him around today on the field. We were able to move him around in return to play, but we'll look at him and try to ramp it up a little bit each day, and Friday get a good look to see if he's available.
Taylor being the right tackle for the Carolina Panthers. Taylor Moton, whose status is up in the air, seems like he could play, also have an injury at center. And while we talk about Carolina a lot on this show in particular, I do think they're worth bringing up because, again, we see this downgrade. Last week, as part of our power ratings, we were looking at it, Carolina was right about the 74 line or so. And yet here, after a beatdown of Buffalo, but a change at quarterback back to your starter, you see this 2-point downgrade. But it's also, I think, a microcosm of what we're seeing here. The gap between the teams at the top and the teams at the bottom is so wide. And while it might be tempting to look at this and go, well, it's probably a little too much given what we know about Carolina, their ability to run the ball, maybe that's a little too far down. But these favorites are beating their opponents down. This, I thought, was a great note from Jeff Vogel, and it's fitting because Jeff is the one who showed me this exercise and how to do it. Jeff Vogel, former VSiN colleague. NFL favorites win 11-2 ATS last week. We can improve that to 12-2 ATS after Baltimore's 28-6 win at Miami. If the point spreads had been minus 17 in all of those games, favorites still would have gone 9-5 against the spread. This is what we're looking at with these last few weeks and these good teams versus these bad teams. And I got to say, I think it leaves you a little gun shy with looking at some of these bad teams catching these big numbers. But these numbers are so big, and the differences are so big between these two. You know, let's take a look, for example, at the New Orleans Saints and the Tennessee Titans. They check in here at the bottom of our power ratings yet again, both on the 70 line, specifically for the Titans. As I was making the case to Stormy the other day, like 10, that kind of seems like a lot. It's somewhat of a key number. Currently at 9.5 across the board. That would mean an 11-point difference between the team like the Chargers and the Titans. And again, for the point of this exercise, since we're looking at this through the prism of these games that are being played this weekend, if we're bumping up the Titans, then we're bumping up the Chargers. Even if you want to put the Titans as equals with the Panthers, that would mean they have to move the Chargers up to equals with teams like the Colts, the Rams, now the Ravens coming off of that win. And I don't think that's the case for the Chargers and the way that they've been priced here. Makes all the sense in the world to leave the Titans there. There's no reason to upgrade them from last week, which is where they were at, the 70 line. But you just see the big difference between these teams. So let's get to a team that I think is absolutely fascinating. I talk about market stubbornness a lot, and there's times where the market refuses to budge on teams and their perception of teams. And I think this year, that team is the Houston Texans. If we throw up our power ratings one more time, we can see that Houston here is on that 81 line with those aforementioned Chargers, considered to be equals with teams like the Seahawks and the Broncos, who they face this week, of course. They're only laying 1.5, just 2 points behind the Colts, the Rams, the Ravens. Hell, just 3 points behind a team like the Bills, the Lions, the Packers. I think this is incredible. And this Texans defense is good. And we do have a big question about where the Broncos are going to be. Let's hear from Sean Payton. Talked about the big test that his offense has in store for them as they take on the Texans defense this weekend.
They're extremely fast. Man, the edges, when you look at Daniil Hunter and both of these edge players with wide techniques are problems. The secondary is extremely talented. There's a multitude of things, but the things they do exceptionally well. And so we got to keep looking at the things that we can do to attack it, but they're very well coached. They're very, very talented. I think they've done a great job of building that defense through the draft, free agency, and D'Amico's put you can see his touches all over it.
This is going to be a big test. Over the last 4 weeks, Bo Nix has been the eighth greatest, highest graded quarterback in the National Football League via PFF. 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's only committed 2 turnover-worthy plays, taking care of the football. The level of competition, though, is nowhere near what this Texans defense has been. But to the point of the number and where this Texans team is at, in all the weeks we have done this for the Texans and for the NFL overall, if you look at every single week we have done this, the lowest that the market has allowed the Texans to slip to is 79. That's it. We have not seen them slip. Despite the fact that they are one of the worst ATS teams in the NFL, there's not really been this big adjustment. And we've seen the adjustment for all these other teams. We've seen it on the positive side. Remember, for the Indianapolis Colts, going all the way back to week 1, Indy was down to a 78.5 power rating. Now they're all the way up there amongst the, we'll call them elite teams in the NFL at 83. The market is willing to upgrade certain teams. It's willing to downgrade certain teams as we see the back-and-forth nature of what's happened with the Panthers, the Bengals, the Dolphins even. Remember, the Dolphins were in that range with the Colts in week 1. But for the stubbornness for this Houston team, I find very, very surprising, given right now what we know about them and what the returns have been. It's been pretty fascinating to see here. By the way, we should note, too, a couple of other things here. But the Bengals game and the Bears game, it's one of those sick, fascinating games that I cannot wait to watch this coming weekend either. As we were talking about earlier this week, the difference in the power rating between the Bengals from last week to this week, there is a difference. And they've been knocked down about 2.5 points from where they were a week before. Again, seems like a lot considering, but we do think it is not going to be Joe Flacco this coming weekend. All right, top of the hour, we'll get to the NBA. We've got a deep card there. Got to talk about some awards as well, as one player has thrust himself into a conversation for one award that I don't think he should win, but he might. We'll tell you who that is when we come back.
Are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? I sure am. The Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. Use it like any credit card. Buy lunch, gas, or your weekly groceries, and you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee, and right now you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It's the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Go to Gemini.com/card to learn more. Terms apply. See the link in the description for more information regarding rates and fees.
10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.